Hey, it's Adam. I wanted to bring you a hip-focused yin class today, so let's start on our backs in a Supta Baddha Konasana. So coming onto your backs, bring the soles of the feet together and make a pretty big diamond shape with the knees, the feet, and the hips. So let those heels be pretty far away from the inner thighs. Knees are nice and wide, and then the knees are starting to open up the hips by drawing the knees down towards the ground. And this is our first pose in our yin practice today. We're going to be here for a couple minutes. Each one of these poses will hold for 2 minutes or so, just giving the body a lot of time to settle in. Letting these poses kind of marinate where they need to be. So if the hips are not welcoming this pose this early on in your practice, a nice way to support would be making fists and then sliding your fists underneath your hip sockets. And that might give yourself a little support there. But if your knees feel okay, opening up through your hips, you can bring a hand to your heart and a hand to your belly. And then we'll find a few breaths here. Big inhale through the nose, fill up the lungs, let the torso get expansive. Top of your breath, open mouth exhale. One more like that, big inhale through the nose. Open mouth exhale. And keeping your feet and knees exactly where they are, we're just going to switch the hand positions. The opposite hand on heart, opposite hand on the belly. Or if your knees, your hands are still underneath your hips, just leave them right there. And this time we're going to take 2 breaths in and out through our nose. Inhale through the nose. Keep the lips sealed and exhale through the nose. One more like that. Big inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose. Nice. We're going to take about 5 more breaths here. Now, whatever kind of breath you want to take, whatever breath is calling you, and let it be a full breath in through the nose. Let your body get as expansive, filling up on all that oxygen. A nice deep exhale through the nose or mouth, your choice. Let those knees be a little heavier for these last couple breaths. Never pushing, letting gravity do what it needs to. And just thinking about the knees pulling themselves down towards the ground. Nice, take one more breath here. And let's bring the hands to the outside of your knees. And then gently let the knees come back together, helping them with the hands. And then we'll bring our knees into our chest. And rock side to side. Take a couple breaths here. You can start to round through the hips, round through the knees, whatever kind of counter pose makes sense to your body right now. If you're rounding in one direction, make sure you hit up that second direction. So we're evening off on both sides. And then coming back to center. Let's release the arms long above the head and release the legs long towards the end of your mat. We'll take a big good morning stretch here. Reach opposite ends of the room with the feet and the arms. Round through the wrists and the ankles. Feel the torso get expansive. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Our next pose is Bananasana. So keeping the hips stable where they're at, let's walk our feet off to the right side. So it could just be a couple heel lengths over or pretty deep, but keep your hips stable. Cross your left ankle over your right ankle. And then keeping our shoulders where they're at, we're just going to walk our upper body over towards the right side as well. So making a big crescent moon shape with the right side of the body. You can place your right hand inside your left wrist. And we'll start to breathe here. Think about breathing into the left side of your body, that big open side here. I'll start to press firmly through the left hip and your left shoulder. So trying to keep that side of your body down so we're not over compressing on this right side and lifting out of this left side. So still gently rolling the left side of the body down. And I personally like to bring my left cheek to the left bicep and kind of let my head rest there. Nice little cushion for my arm. So about 1 more minute here. Feel that big stretch all the way from the hip, that left hip down, up through your left armpit. And if your ankle is, left ankle is crossed over your right, maybe press your right knife edge of the foot into the top of your left foot. Pull a little bit more down and feel that big stretch start to happen. Nice. I think about 5 more seconds here. Big opening on the left side. That gentle compression in on the right. 1 more breath. Alright, slowly unpack this. Walk the hands back towards center. Let your torso unravel first. And then uncross the ankles. Bringing our entire body back to center. And take that big good morning stretch again. Reach far, reach long, round the wrist, crack the knuckles. And then we'll move to the other side. We'll start to walk the feet off to the left this time. So really keeping the hips stable where they're at. Just let the feet move over to your left. Right ankle crosses over the left ankle. And then keeping the shoulders pretty stable, walk the hands off to the left as well. Maybe letting the right wrist rest inside your left wrist or left hand. Nice, just big passive opening to the right side body here. Gently rolling the right side down. So we're staying more or less seated through the right hip and right shoulder. Not a lot of force, just a conscious awareness to roll that side of the body down. Gaze wherever feels best for you. Bringing my right cheek to my right bicep on this side usually works for me. I'm going to feel it out. In these poses that we hold for a long time, you might end up finding more depth than you normally do in a pose. And you might also find that you've gone too deep into a pose and need to back out. So either way, we're always conscious and aware of what our pose is doing with our body at that point in time. And making the adjustments we need to. About 30 more seconds here on this side. Maybe taking the knife edge of your left foot and putting a little gentle pressure into the top of your right foot to pull your right hip a little bit deeper. Nice. Last 10 seconds here. Last breath. Let's uncross the arms and walk our torso back to center. And then the legs meet there as well. 1 more time, just take that big stretch. Reaching far, reaching long. And then let's draw the knees into the chest. And grab for the tops of the shins, or maybe reach for fingertips. Take a deep breath in. Squeeze your knees toward your chest on the exhale. All right, let's grab back the thighs or the shins. Rock and roll a couple times. Feel that nice massage in the spine. And then coming up, we'll find our way into a neutral spine. So coming onto your hands and knees to about the middle of your mat. We're going to go through a couple cats and cows. So on the hands and knees, shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees. Rock back and forth a couple times just to feel how the shoulders and hips are feeling today. And then for my cats and cows, I really like to find movement, so really kind of flossing the spine and giving your SI joint and any sciatica issues an opportunity to kind of work themselves out. So I like to tuck my toes under, but your choice. On the inhale, lift your head up, tail up. I like to drop my hips back towards my heels. And on the exhale, head and tail tuck under, shoulders coming forward past the wrists. Couple more like that. Inhale, head up, tail up. Gently press the hips back towards the heels. And then the exhale, head and tail curl under, shoulders come forward past the wrists. 2 more times on your own breath. Nice slow movements. Feel the entire spine start to move up and down with your breath. One more time here. Inhale, head up, tail up, hips drop back, lift the gaze, lift the chest. On the exhale, head and tail curl under as we come forward. And coming back to your neutral spine first. And then coming all the way forward. I'm going to take a Sphinx pose next. So coming onto your bellies, elbows underneath the shoulders. Legs at least hip distance apart, maybe mat width, just depending on how your lower body feels today. Elbows underneath the shoulders, arms reaching forward, forearms on the mat. Now, if this is too much, the shoulders on top of the elbows, you can walk the arms a little farther forward. That might take some pressure out of the shoulders and also out of your lower back. So really listen to these poses, listen to your body in these poses, and see how they're reacting. All right, so setting up our Sphinx pose. Now my chest is nice and high. I like to keep my gaze lifted for this first part. Let me move around to the shoulders just a little bit. Now, not forgetting about the lower back compression. So an eye on the lower back, how that's feeling. Now keeping the gaze lifted might feel okay. Maybe bringing the gaze down towards the chest might feel a little bit better. And play around with it. You can even find a little bit of dip into the chest with the shoulders, if that feels all right. That'll also release a little bit of that back stress if you have any tension in your lower back. So always in control of your own poses here. Start to settle in. Feel the hips gently pressing down into the mat. And gentle pressure into your elbows. And a little scan of the body and see how the body's reacting to this pose. Now one more breath here. Then we're going to slowly come down, chin and chest all the way down to the mat. Keep the hands more or less where they're at. Just let the elbows come out wide. Bring your gaze towards the right, left ear to the mat. Then from here, let's bring our right knee right up the mat. Right knee in line with the right hip, right sole of the foot, right into the mat. So into our half frog. Then we're going to add our Sphinx back into this. Right, so keeping the right knee where it's at, gently press into the hands, and coming back into our Sphinx pose. Elbows underneath the shoulders. Now a little off center with the hips. Gentle pressure with the right hip in. Right, so we're rolling the right hip in. Maybe a little engagement to the right glute. All right, now from here we're going to add in a twist. Right hand's going to walk a little farther forward, lifting the right elbow. Okay. And then we'll take our left arm underneath, palm towards the mat first. All right, let that left arm beat down, and then slowly peel the right arm open and finding this beautiful twist. The right hand can stay lifted towards the ceiling. It doesn't need to touch the ground behind us. Let that right knee be your anchor in this pose. Left palm can flip the face towards the ceiling, and try to relax into this twist. If the right hand lifted in space doesn't feel good, you can bring your right hand towards your right hip and let the right elbow come towards the mat instead. But if the right hand is almost to the mat or touching the mat, let it be just a little bit more pressure to help this twist happen. Breathe here. We have about another 30 seconds. Soften through the jaw. Try to find places in the body that you're creating tension, whether you realize it or not. 10 more seconds. Maybe feel that right arm getting a little heavier, getting closer to the ground. Last breath. Slowly lift that right arm back up, coming out of our twist. All right, right elbow comes back to the mat. Square the torso, untuck your left arm from underneath. Back into your Sphinx pose with our right knee lifted. Take the breath. On the exhale, lower the body down. Gaze to the right. And then bring the knees together. Let's rock the hips side to side if there's any tension in the lower back. And then we'll shift our gaze to our left side. So gazing to our left, right ear is on the mat. Then slowly start to bring your left knee up in line with your left hip, moving into that half frog first. Couple breaths here. Sole of the left foot into the mat. And then we'll add our Sphinx pose back into this. So coming back up onto our elbows. Elbows underneath the shoulders. Hands out in front of us. All right, now see how this is landing with the body. We have a little bit of time here before we add that twist in. Right, start to rotate the left hip in. So maybe gentle pressure in with the left knee. Just see how that left hip engaging and maybe pushing through the left glute to see what that feels like. Little pressures. Right, just take your time feeling these out. All right, now let's get ready for our twist. Shift your weight to your right elbow. Left arm starts to reach long. And then we'll take our right arm underneath our left arm. Gently start to peel this open into that twist. Let that left knee be your anchor on this side. Left arm reaching up and over. And take some time here. Let that left arm be your anchor. Make a choice. See if you need to change this pose or let that left arm continue to open the body. If you took your hand to your waist on the other side, you can bring your left hand to your waist and let the elbow and the shoulder start to gently open the twist. The arm is going to add some more weight to that. Nice. Then breathe into this. Let the twist start to do what it needs to do. Gently pulling the left shoulder down towards the mat and feeling that beautiful twist in the center spine. "30 seconds left." Maybe scanning through the body, finding those little places of tension. Not to give any judgment towards it. Just to put some thought there. Breathe there. Ten more seconds. And slowly change. Bring your left arm up and over first. Planting your left elbow onto the ground. Undo our twist. Taking the right arm out. Back into our half frog Sphinx pose variation. Nice. Take a breath. Then on the exhale, slowly bow the elbows out. Gaze to your left. And then we'll slide our left leg back in line with our right. And any tension, rock the hips back and forth. All right, let's draw the hands underneath the shoulders, chin to the mat. Gently press ourselves up and back into a child's pose. Let the knees be wide, hips back towards the heels, rock back and forth a couple times. The next inhale, come up to hands and knees. You're going to move to lizard pose from here. So from your hands and knees, step your right foot up just to the outside of the right pinky. If you need to come into from downward dog or some other position, just go right ahead. Right, just finding our way into our lizard pose. Now you option to stay up on the hands. I like to keep my knee down in my yin versions of these poses, but you can be active and keep the knee up. If you have the ability to maybe drop the elbows down to the mat, and if that feels okay for you, then drop the elbows down. As you start to find depth here, we still want to keep the knee on top of the ankle unless you're opening up through the hip. A lot of times we come in a little too inside, and we put a lot of strain to our ankle as the knee starts to bow out inadvertently. So start from a very aware position, knee on top of the ankle, and then adjust from there. So the coming down to the elbows is really nice if you can, if your hips allow it. If you're still looking for more depth than the elbows will allow, a couple options. You can bring the hands side by side with the elbows on top of the wrists and tent the fingertips and let that drop down. Keep the gaze forward. Letting the chest come forward and down. Or if you want another version, maybe bring the hands forward. Bring the gaze forward and then drop down. This version is a little bit more for the hip flexor on the left side. So wherever version you've landed yourself into, we'll take about another 30 seconds here. And feel free to move in these poses. Gentle rocking, moving all that synovial fluid around that we have built up in our muscles, our joints. Let's take one more breath here. All right, from wherever you're at, make your way back up to your hands. And we'll take this into half pigeon pose. So gently start to walk this right foot all the way across the mat. Right toes land behind our left wrist. Right knee behind the right wrist. And this is a good opportunity if you have a pillow or a couch cushion, if you want to slide that underneath this right hip for support. Block if you have that as well. And gently start to walk that left leg back long behind us. Now for the first about 30 seconds or so, let's stay upright, pressing the fingertips into the mat, and having a little bit of mobility with the hips. So find that little bit of movement here. Put some weight into the fingertips. Maybe start to engage your left glute and see what that hip flexor feels like on the left side. Almost like a screw top. So as we're pulling that right hip back, we're pushing the left hip flexor forward. All right, now start to find a little bit of passiveness here. Maybe come down to your elbows if the hips allow it. Maybe making your way all the way down into your chest. So whatever variation you like to take from this pose, whatever depth, whatever feels right, and start to move there. For this pose for myself, I like to walk my hands forward and then off to the left side. And then pressing into the fingertips, pressing back into my right hip. Nice gentle pressure moving back. And so whatever variation you're moving into, 30 seconds. Stay with your breath. Especially with these big hip opening, back bends, any intense poses, knowing what your breath feels like and sounds like will really help you know if you're too deep or you're in trouble with these poses. If your breath gets a little erratic from what you're normally used to, it's one of our good indicators. All right, slowly start to walk yourself back. Let's sit back on our right hip. Keep the left leg extended long. And then roll into our Jani Shavasana. Left leg extends out. Right foot's to our inner thigh. Arms lift on the inhale. And on the exhale, slowly let the body just fold over your left leg. Little micro adjustments here. Right shoulder starts to dip in towards the inside of the knee. Let your torso be long, maybe walking the fingers towards the left heel, but never forcing anything in our yin practice. So let these poses be as passive as you can, letting gravity take over. Nice. We have about 10 more seconds here. So not as long on these Jani Shirasanas. It's more as a counter pose. One more breath. And slowly walk the hands back in. And we'll take a dancing tabletop. Bring your right hand back by your right hip. And on the inhale, come up to your right knee and your left foot. Press the hips open. Reach that free left arm back. And then slowly let the hips come back down to the ground. And then we'll come back onto all fours. Hands and knees. Rock side to side. All right, second side for our lizard variation sequence. So bring your left foot up towards the outside of your left pinky finger. And remember, you can come into this from your downward dog or whatever variation you need to. And taking some time here on our hands, finding some movement with the hips, understanding how the shoulders are right now with this side. And then making your journey wherever you went to on the other side. If you worked your way down into your elbows, take your time. Little stages, breathe through the stages, and then adding depth or intensity as you go. I like to find movement with each stage of depth. Now if you wanted to add more depth from here, variations, bringing the hands out wide, steepling the fingertips, elbows on top of the wrists, and then slowly let the chest drop down. Gaze gently forward, maybe just gazing at the top of the mat. Finding a gentle sway. And if you like that, arms extended with the fingers pressing into the mat, moving into the right hip flexor a little bit more, and take whatever variation you like. That 30-second mark. More seconds. Start to make your way back up to your hands. All right, now stable into the shoulders, moving into our half pigeon pose. Walk your left foot across the mat. Left toes land behind the right wrist. Left knee behind the left. Staying up on the fingertips for the first about 30 seconds or so. Right leg walks long behind you. Try to keep the right toes pointed straight on the mat. And if you found a little bit of movement was helpful on the other side, maybe that gentle sway. Using the fingertips to be moving through the hips. You see how this side might be very different than the other side. All right, now if you started to add more depth, pause your movement, move down to your elbows, move down towards the chest. Whatever depth you found helpful on the other side might be a good barometer place to start on this side. Now my favorite one on this is walking my hands forward and then off to the opposite side of the hip I'm pushing into. Right, so my left hip is bent, or the left hip is active this time, so I want to walk my hands off to the right, pressing the fingertips into the mat, then rolling my left hip down. Just a little bit of counter pressure here. Three more breaths. All right, now slowly making your way back up to your hands and knees. I'm sorry, onto your hands. All right, now let's roll to our left hip. Slowly moving into our Jani Shavasana. Right leg extends out, left foot slides to the inner right thigh. And we're going to square our hips over this right leg. Arms lengthen on the inhale, and on the exhale, folding over this right leg. No need to grab for anything. Let the hands come to the sides of the ankle. Left shoulder starts to dip in towards the left knee. There's a couple more breaths here. Again, more as a counter pose here. Now as we inhale, we're going to lead with our left hand. Plant your left hand by your left hip. Roll to your left knee, right foot, and lift your hips. Dancing tabletop. Reached, lift, take your breath. Now on the exhale, slowly let the hips come back down to the ground. And this time, just spin to the front of your mat. Let's grab our knees and rock onto our backs. And keeping your hands on top of the knees, I'm going to start to make some big circles with the knees. We'll go outwards first. Big circles with the knees, moving through the hips. And then opposite direction of whichever way you're going right now. And come back to center. Wrap the arms over the shins, grab for opposite elbows, fingertips, wrists. Take a little tuck of the chin to the chest, lengthen through the top of the neck. Roll your lower back down. And take one more breath in. Squeeze everything towards center on the exhale. And release into your final Shavasana. Legs long, arms by the sides. You start to come back to your breath. Lay here in this final Shavasana as long as you can. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like the video, hit like, subscribe if you like the channel. If you want to donate, we appreciate you. You can find us on Venmo, Adam Riehl, or Strength of Spirit. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Namaste.